Welcome back to the Ryer on YouTube channel. It is time once again for No Sleep Teal. Travis Ryer alongside Evan Ryer. We're going to talk some Jacksonville Jaguars fresh from the bye week. Ev, we've had a pretty good Wednesday. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, by the way, and we are live right here on Ryer on YouTube. We played a little golf earlier. Your mother made a drop dead barbecue chicken salad for us, and we got a turkey on the smoker getting ready for tomorrow. So even with the Jags at 2-9, we're living all right.
No, the Ryers have never lost to Thanksgiving, I would say. That's it's kind of like the Ole Miss phrase.
Dynasty.
They don't win every game, but they never lost a tailgate. Well, we don't lose Thanksgiving. It's funny. I was thinking about how there were the rumors, back in the summer or the spring, that the Jags were finally going to play a Thanksgiving game. I'm actually pretty thankful that I
There you
don't have
go.
to.
You're
That I
thankful for
don't
something.
have to watch them tomorrow, and I can just watch some
What
of the
if
other.
that Lions game last Sunday
Oh
had
God,
been
dude.
a standalone on Thanksgiving or 2 Sundays ago?
No,
Oof.
I mean it's at the point where I don't want the Jags to be on national television. We don't need that exposure at the moment.
Running
Uh,
clock for one of the Thanksgiving games.
Absolutely. But no, instead we get to just enjoy tomorrow, enjoy some of the college football as well, and it'll be nice and easy.
It's
Uh,
actually a pretty good Thanksgiving slate too.
yeah, it is.
Now that the Lions are good, it used to be in my formative years, you're like, damn, the Lions again on
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. They're like 2-8, and they're probably playing the Bears, who back in the day, the Bears weren't very good, but some pretty entertaining games. I mean, I like the nightcap, especially Packers Dolphins in prime
Yeah, that's a
time.
fun one. That's a
You
fun
know,
one. And, the fact that the Cowboys got a much needed win over the Commanders this past week, it means that game, also has a little bit more juice, even though this Cowboys team isn't very good. They are technically still alive in the playoff hunt, which I guess so are the Jags, technically speaking.
not dead yet. So you're
Not dead
telling me
yet.
there's a
We
chance.
we were doing the math at
Lloyd
Harps
Christmas. Yeah.
on Tuesday.
Harps, shout out.
Yeah,
Carl's Way
about
wings. No
yeah.
retoss though. Don't get them retossed. They'll be a little soggy if you do that.
Now that's the West Side pro tip,
Yeah.
100%. But no, it's still a game. It's kind of like trying to beat the Texans or trying to beat the Titans. You still really want to beat these teams, even if you're not playing for much at this point. Um, you know it. It's a game that at the end of the day you still want to win. It sounds like one of the most important talking points I guess about this week is that Trevor Lawrence seems to be looking to play.
You're not a fan of that. You're not a fan of Trevor Lawrence right now. I guess your point is if it's something even borderline substantial that he's dealing with. If he's
Well, yeah,
beat up or he's
I
bruised or banged up, that's one thing. But if we're talking about the potential to maybe be injured worse than he already is, you're not a fan.
that's my main thing. It's not that I think Trevor is bad and I don't want him to start. It's just a pure what reason do we really need to like I get that when you're paid $50 million and you're the face of the franchise and stuff, you do need to be playing as much as you possibly can. But Trevor said this week that surgery in season or after the season is not off the table. So to me, that just says like, okay, well, it sounds like
But let me ask you this. If he's cleared to play, do you think he needs to play just in terms of his continued development? That's kind of where I go with he needs to play. I think the guy
yeah,
needs to play.
yeah.
I don't think he's there yet. So
No, I think that's
I don't
fair.
think he needs to be exposed to unnecessary hits or further damage to an injury. But I don't think he's at a point yet where, oh yeah, just shut him down because he's good. It's just everybody else.
No, that's fair. I think that's a totally valid point. I guess my counter to that would just be how much is he getting
Yeah.
developed in this Doug Peterson offense? With how things have gone. Reps of any kind are important, but I feel like we watched him regress from the beginning of the Doug era to where he's been at this season. So, and how he ended last year as well. So it's, I don't know. I think there's, two minds there. I definitely, I hope they've got a plan to keep him upright, because if
Well,
Will
it'd be great to
Anderson,
have a run game that you could count on, right? But
yeah, well, they
didn't
don't
didn't see
trust.
didn't see Will Anderson last time either, did they? I don't
No,
think.
he didn't play. So,
Didn't see Joe
uh,
Mixon either, and
yeah,
that's nightmare fuel for me. Joe Mixon
no,
running
this
against this
this is
defense.
this is a Texans team that is making a lot of mistakes, but they're actually pretty healthy at this point in time. Nico Collins is
Nico,
back.
yeah,
That he also, I don't think, played in no, he did play. He did
he
play,
played.
but he was injured for a few
I
weeks
think
there.
Tank Dale was out maybe
Yeah,
last time.
tanked out. Like they're basically getting back. And the thing is that they can drop these random stupid games to the Titans or whatever, because who's in the
Like
division? No one.
preseason. Yeah,
That being said, I think the Texans definitely are looking at this game with some weight, though, just because
get right game.
after some of the losses that they've taken in the past few weeks, past month, really, definitely not good. That Titans loss, especially, is rough.
Yes, and
Uh,
D'Amico's not a let it slide guy.
yeah, not at
He
all.
wasn't that way as a player at Alabama. He's not that way as a head coach.
I'm not.
So
I'm not. There's certain. All throughout this year, except for maybe the Lions and the Bills game. I've talked about it before. It seems like teams have not necessarily gotten up against the Jags either. I don't think that's going to be the case this weekend. I
no.
think the Texans are going to bring just
You're
about
getting a
everything they
fully
got.
pissed off Texans team
Yeah,
after that disappointment at home against the Titans last week. And, there are matchups that we'll get into maybe that you're thinking about going into this game. Obviously, Trevor, the main storyline, will he play? Won't he play? Doug made some kind of vague comments in relation to some in-house changes,
yeah,
perhaps coming off the bye week. Maybe that's offensively. I know a lot has been drawn into, well, it's Doug going to take over the play calling. We don't know if Doug hadn't really called the plays. Who
yeah.
knows for sure? Um, at this point. So, uh, what are your thoughts on that, Ev?
Yeah, the internal changes thing has been pretty mild in terms of what they've publicly said. Um, they're being pretty, keeping their hand close to their chest, which is hilarious. Really, at this juncture, when you're 2-9, like, I mean, I don't know. But I think we could see, yeah, I mean, we could see some functional changes in terms of the offense. I wonder if some of that could be guys getting opportunities that they haven't been getting over the past few weeks.
Yeah,
If, maybe they're deciding that Tank Bigsby deserves touches again
if he's
after,
healthy. Yeah.
starving him over the past, when he has been able to play. I mean, he's really hadn't seen much of the ball at all. You wonder if there's anything going on with the defense. If
Maybe more so than the offense, but the offense is what everybody wants to talk about. If you're going to make some changes, I might look at the defense before I even look at the
yeah,
offense, especially after Detroit.
no, I mean it was, and I mean the defense was non-existent. I mean it literally was not really there. It was butter, and the Lions just decimated it. I'd be curious to see how they come out, and maybe if certain guys that have been getting kind of the starting reps, if maybe there's some benching or something like that. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm thinking could be it too. Maybe they'll stop rotating as much. That would be
Yeah.
cool, but I don't think so.
Maybe they're implementing some things defensively that will prevent them from rotating.
Yeah, which
Maybe
would be cool.
conceptually they look at some different things than what we have seen. The bye weeks when you're going to do that kind of thing. You're not
Yeah,
going to do that on a week to week base. You just
right.
can't. Because it's Wednesday, right? Before
Yeah,
you know it, and you're really just getting started for an opponent. But with the bye week, if you wanted to do something a little more dramatic, offensively, defensively, different phases of the game, that would be the time to do it. And I know, locally, time to time I tune into some sports talk radio, and there's folks that are adamant about more transparency from Doug. Well, what do you want Doug to do in this particular instance? You asked him if there could be some changes this week. He said he was transparent, I thought, in admitting that yes, there are going to be some changes. But then you expect him to go, hey, yeah, this is what we're going to change on offense. We're going to go to the wishbone, or defensively, we're going to go to the 46 defense from the past of the Chicago Bears. He can't and shouldn't do that in that particular
Yeah.
instance. But it all goes back to the frustration, right? At this point, I mean, that's where all this is coming.
Yeah, I think part of it too is, especially his relationship with the media has gotten a little,
Tenuous,
antagonistic
tenuous.
at times. So I think sometimes, even, it's one thing for fans to kind of, demand that or whatever. But when you even hear like media people saying it, it's like, yeah, I mean, they probably wouldn't necessarily feel the same if it didn't feel like Doug was, making comments about how they don't understand why interceptions are thrown or whatever, right? So, it's just honestly bad vibes more than anything. I will say we listened to the press conference today, and that was probably the most chipper I've heard Doug in quite some time. I mean, he, maybe having some time off was, I think it's something the Jags did sorely need. That not that it mattered by the point by the time they got to the bye week, but that is a brutal bye selection. Getting it after 11 games.
Yeah.
That's it's like it's what happened to them. It's not like, if they had maybe lost like, their first 4 games and then you get a bye week or whatever, you kind of feel like, okay, well, we kind of have a fresh start here or whatever. And instead, when you have to go 11 games and you're just spiraling.
Well, think about college football this season. There's teams that just have played their 11th game and they've already had 2 bye weeks.
Right.
The bye weeks are over in college football and they've played 11 games. They're going in their final regular, and the Jags are just
getting to
the bye or just got to their bye week. So definitely a team. And this is a point on the schedule though, Evan, that we pointed to really even back in August. Just get to late November, early December in just one piece, and then the schedule is going to lighten up. But then you see the Titans go to Houston last weekend and play very well and shock, I guess, if there's such a thing in NFL terms. It was certainly an upset.
It's
of the
nuts.
Texans.
It's nuts that, if the Jags get 2 more wins, not even 3 or 4, 2 more wins. This at 4-7, this game this weekend would have been a big deal, because if you win this game, it's very much on. If the Texans were to drop back-to-back games against
Texans have let everybody hang around, really.
Yeah, if you had dropped the Texans down another level and also get to 5-7 with a win this Sunday, then you're looking at a chance. Because these last 5 games beyond that Texans game are very winnable games. They're not, there's nobody that's especially insanely, daunting. They've gotten through that part of the schedule, but just didn't do enough to really make it matter at this point in stage. But still, I really dislike the Texans. I would love to spoil their season further. I would love to make them feel bad, but
hurt their seed.
I think I'm worried.
Although as a divisional champ, your record really doesn't matter as much, right?
I mean, you can go
nowadays.
I mean, that's the Jags were both was it back-to-back seasons that 9-8 was the division winner? I mean, you don't have to win the most games in the conference, just win enough. I think, when we talk about those matchups, we're both scared of the same guy.
I've been scared of this. I've been scared of that guy since he signed with the damn Texans.
Feels like this could be a Saquon Barkley, that Eagles performance.
And he's not Saquon Barkley, okay? He's not that
he's
dynamic.
Not, but the Jags can make him look.
You better bring your butt with you when it's time to tackle.
Yeah.
He runs angry. That seems to work well against this defense. That's even more so than C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, because you didn't see Joe Mixon. I'm not trying to turn him into Earl Campbell now in Houston. I'm not trying to do that as an old head, but he is a problem. And I think that for me, as much as anything, is where it's going to start Sunday for the Jaguar defense. Can they tackle Joe Mixon?
Well, I mean, when they've played really good running backs this year, they've gotten gashed.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery tore it
Josh
up.
Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs tore it up. So I don't see how that's going to stop necessarily with another good running back in Joe Mixon. But who knows? Maybe they should, like I've said it a bunch. They should continue to sell out on the run and just make quarterbacks beat them, because at this point in time, like it, there's not really like anything from CJ Stroud over the past month that makes me think that he could, just go out there and throw 4 touchdowns. Now, Jaguars secondary is not great, but he's not playing like he was last year, where he was just kind of outright winning games. So I think it's the same thing as sell out on Joe Mixon, but at the end of the day, it's really difficult to sell out on the run when you have to deal with Nico Collins and Tank Dell.
Well, and this Jaguar defense hasn't taken away one aspect of an offense really all season long.
Yeah, it does. They're not
most defenses, you can say, we're going to take away this. We're going to take this away and they'll have to beat us. It doesn't seem to go that way for the Jaguars defense. They're not able to even just take away one aspect. Okay, we're going to take away this back. We're going to take away this receiver.
Right.
That hasn't been something they've been able to do.
No, not at all. And that's the thing is, like, I mean, at the end of the day, while the Texans offensive line may be the worst offensive line in the NFL, at least performance wise, it's been up there. I just, they have enough weapons, and I don't think the Jaguars have enough guys on defense to keep up with those weapons, whether that is Joe Mixon or, for example, Jarian Jones can do a great job. Let's say he has a really great game and he's mostly locking down Nico Collins. Buster Brown and Ronald Darby is going to get lit up by Tank Dell. Like, that's how it kind of feels right now.
And it might actually be reversed. It might be that Jarian sees more of Tank Dale inside and Nico Collins on the outside.
This would be
regardless,
it would be a great time for Tyson Campbell to have a game if he does play.
That's a difference from the first time around too with Tyson, right?
But at this, at the same time, it's like we've seen so little of them this year that it's hard to really judge or predict what we're going to get. If those two dudes play well, that would go a long way. If the Jaguars, basically top 2 corners can, for the most part, limit them to, then, you start to see an easier route, to a competitive game to potentially winning, because at that point it's really, I guess, Dalton Schultz.
Hey, but tight ends have been problematic. So if you got one.
And Schultz is pretty good. He's not, elite, but he's definitely, maybe just outside the top 10 in terms of tight ends in the NFL. And, even John Mechie has had a little bit of a resurgence in this offense coming over the past, month or two. So there's,
but let's talk about that Texans offensive line, because the Jags did have success there, like most teams, most defenses have, against a Texans offensive line that hasn't been very good. We talk about Stroud and a little bit of a sophomore swoon. But even with Laramie Tunsil, who hasn't had his kind of year, I would say, even at the left tackle position, maybe the Jags can get after CJ Stroud and, be disruptive enough that Mixon can't get going. That's the problem with Mixon. Once he gets going, then he's a load. Then he's difficult to deal with. But, it's hard to kind of fathom after the performance against Detroit, but I think there are still some matchups for the Jaguars defensively that they can have some success with.
Yeah, for sure. I think defensive line versus offensive line is an area that they should win. I mean, really, I would say realistically, unless there's a ton of penalties like there was in the first time they matched up, the Jags I think they only had 2 or 3 sacks in that game, but there was probably 8 or 9 different offensive holding penalties against the Texans in that game. It's got to be something like that, or you need to rack up the sacks. It's very difficult to sack CJ Stroud. He's elusive. He's very smart. He's aware, has good footwork. But I think that if they can kind of take the approach that you would against, even more mobile quarterbacks, I think I would rather Stroud remain in the pocket than kind of getting forced outside and kind of making plays on the run and stuff. I think he's still been very good at that this year. I think he's honestly just kind of struggled more when he's in the pocket. But you have to pressure him, but you can't push him out. So that's a tall order even against a bad offensive line. So I think, yeah, for sure, this is a game for Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen to really show up. You hope that maybe the interior DL, some of those guys can kind of, get something going because it's been pretty quiet recently.
It has.
But also, I think this is a big game for, Oluokun, for the linebacker group, because again, if, whether it's Mixon, running it, but also, taking screens or, little shovel stuff, or Dalton Schultz, looking for those 8 to 9 yard pickups, you gotta have good linebacker coverage play there. So that'll be something to watch as well.
Yeah, Foye, this is, you would think, a good matchup for him.
Yeah.
Because Mixon doesn't really try to fool you, or that run game. I mean,
runs.
You pretty much know it's going to be A or B gap most of the night, most of the day. And you got to bring it with you, no doubt about it. And also, looking at the Jags offense and the matchup with the Texans defense, that was one of the most stinging elements of that first matchup, was the opportunities that the Jags had and they weren't able to hit on. Trevor had a couple of deep shots that were teed up, ready-made opportunities, and he wasn't able to hit on them. Stingley, obviously a really good cornerback there, but that's a defensive backfield's had some injuries too, that you should be able to make some hay with, even with the injuries you've got right now. Christian Kirk out, Gabe Davis, who really, unfortunately, you hate to see him out for the remainder of the season, but if we're being honest, he never was a factor for this offense. So, how these sort of next guys up perform to go along with Brian Thomas Jr., I would be surprised if the Jags don't look to get vertical with BTJ very early, because they had some opportunities in that first matchup.
Yeah, I want them to take shots early and often. I think you're going to have to find some form of explosiveness, because really right now, other than, Bigsby breaking off big runs early in the season in the run game, they've been struggling to kind of hit home runs in the running game. I think I want that to happen, but you also can't do the thing that they've, done a lot this year, where if you go 3 and out on that opening drive, let's say, Texans start with the ball, they go down and score a touchdown, because teams have been scoring on their opening drive against the Jags a bunch this year. If you decide, okay, Trevor's going to sling it, and you just 3 and out in 20 seconds, possession or whatever, and then Texans go up 2 scores, it's like, okay, well, I don't know. This is not a game that the Jaguars are really going to be able to come back in, I don't think. If the Texans DL gets to kind of pin their ears back and just rush, it's not going to go well.
With Will Anderson out there this time around,
they've got a lot of dudes that are really solid.
Yeah.
And
Daniel Hunter.
Daniel Hunter is, Daniel Hunter's numbers. That was the dude I wanted the Jags to go get so bad.
You did,
but of course not.
Alas.
He's great, but they're in general. They also have D'Amico knows a blitz. He knows it very well, and he knows when to call it, and it's effective. So that's another thing I'm thinking about. I think we're still waiting on Evan Ingram to have a really big game. He's been solid, I would say, in the past couple of games.
He's got a banged up quarterback. If he's going to go this week, you would think Evan would be even more Trevor's best friend. Get the ball out.
I think this is if Evan Ingram was going to have an 8 reception, 120 yard touchdown kind of game, this is the one to do it. This would be, I think, something that they could, he's one of those few types of guys that can take advantage of a secondary situation like the Texans, and it's taking the top off with BTJ and really trying to hit him underneath. I think that's going to be the focal points of the passing game, and then maybe you can get Parker Washington or some of the other dudes in the mix. Brayton Strange comes to mind, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting, because if what is Trevor at 90%? Is he at 80? Is he at 100?
How much do you have to protect him? And that's tough when you don't really have a run game to protect a beat up quarterback too. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it's
mean,
not like
it's
you can just turn and hand the ball right now. And that's just not who they've been anyway. I mean,
yeah.
it's whatever identity they have, which I haven't figured it out as of yet. It doesn't start with the run game.
Well,
So
and the thing about Trevor that really stinks when it comes to protecting himself is that
not good.
as talented as Trevor is, it is hilarious how difficult he makes checkdowns and screens. The amount of times where the ball is just not really placed exactly where it needs to be on a 5 yard, just toss. Uh, I wouldn't be surprised if we see on, third and long, whenever it comes up, they're just going to do some quick hit stuff, whether it's a bubble
Draw.
screen or
Yeah.
just a true screen or whatever.
Run the ball.
So, but you need him to throw the ball well in those situations for it to really matter. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but that's the problem is that I feel like the Jaguars offense is just a little too predictable. There's no identity, but it is kind of easy to kind of figure out how they're going to approach this, or at least it feels that way. But who knows if they, like you said, if you can hit a deep shot early and scare that secondary a little bit, you open up the short game stuff, and they'll need that bad.
Open up some run game maybe
Yeah,
too with that. Earlier the better, I
anything
think,
around the line
Sunday.
of scrimmage.
Yeah. Now
Um,
you got to protect. And I don't care if you got to block with 8, protect with 8.
yeah, do
Get
it.
2 guys in the route. I don't care. As long as
Yeah, it
one
doesn't
of
matter.
them is number 7 running something vertical. And I'm not throw the bomb guy. There are so
But
many throw the bomb guys and gals out there. The answer to any question is throw deep. I mean, well, if they're playing 2 deep safeties and you can't run the ball against that, where are you throwing the ball deep? You throwing it to a safety? But so, that's the two-headed part of this problem. It's
yeah,
not
for
like
real.
opposing defenses are having to be aggressive in how they play the Jags. Like I talked about earlier, the Jags defensively can't take away one aspect of an opposing offense and make them one-dimensional. Opposing defenses don't have to do that to the Jags,
Because they
right?
already do it
They don't have
themselves.
to sink or drop an extra defender in the box for the run. Sit back, play too deep,
Uh,
and they can't run it against us. And they'll eventually throw it to us, or something will happen in the passing game. We'll get a sack. Got a quarterback that's maybe a little antsy, and you don't really have to. You don't have to be extravagant defensively right now against this offense at all.
no, not at all. It's concerning. We were talking about protecting Trevor Lawrence, and I guess a piece of news from yesterday that is relevant to that is that Tyler Shalley is back, uh, uh, which is cool. It's nice that they did bring him back because a lot of people, it was kind of, he made it pretty clear that this was probably his last go, anyways. And they cut him, but now he's back. I think he's on the practice squad. I'll be curious to see if he becomes one of their activations. If maybe it could be this week or next week. I bet he gets at least one, so they can run him
Yeah,
out there.
probably.
But
Why not?
whether
You know,
they actually need him this week is, I guess, something to monitor. But
yeah,
I guess that's a nice little positive, piece. It's good vibes.
good
We haven't
nostalgia.
had a ton of those, so anything
No.
you can get is kind of nice.
Yeah,
But
my cleat, my cause week. That's pretty cool too. The different
yeah,
shoe designs that we're going to see. We're fans certainly of all the causes, but Northeast Florida School for Special Education in Duval, we know that place pretty well. Uh, have a daughter, your sister, that works there, and just
yeah.
think it's a great place. I see where Evan Ingram is going to represent that that organization, that institution. That's going to be very cool, I guess, too. If you're looking for some
No,
good
yeah.
vibes.
No, that is neat. There was a couple others that I saw that I thought were really great, and that's always one of the better things that the NFL does in terms of specialty. Kind of trying to raise
Awareness.
awareness or money
Yeah.
for certain stuff. So it's always a good thing when it happens, and hopefully it can happen alongside a Jaguars win. Do you have a prediction for the game?
Cam Little is going to keep us on those 50% off Firehouse subs. That is my
That's
prediction
right.
for this week. Cam Little will bang home a 40+ yarder, and I will once again get my Firehouse subs for 50% off.
And that's
That's
what
my
true winners. That's what being a winner is
that's
all
all.
about.
Yeah, good teams win, great teams cover. Evan, as I
It's
taught you
true.
as a young lad, good
No, and
parenting.
the Jaguars have covered a bunch against the spread this year, so that's nice. But they definitely didn't do it against the Lions, but
No,
they could
no.
have made that spread 20 something and
They were
not.
smothered, covered, and scattered
Yeah.
against the line.
I think I'm going to go with since with the idea that Trevor plays, I'm actually going to say that the Jaguars offense does find a spark of some kind, but not enough. I'm going to go like 28-23 Texans.
Exciting game. I think, again, just kind of your point, it's going to be a competitive game. It's a National Football League, though. I kind of get tired of folks saying, wow, the games are all really tight. They're just not winning. Well, it's the NFL. It's
That's what
set
it's
up.
always been. It's been that way forever.
It's set up
Yeah.
to be a 5-point game pretty much every time out. It's just, you would think you would win half of them, but
Yeah.
that hasn't been the case. Yeah, I could see a scenario like that. Where the Jags once again are right there in the fourth quarter, and then it's a matter of getting over the hump. Hey,
Yeah.
Evan.
No, it's going to be. I think the other thing too is I think the Jaguars need at least 2 takeaways to win this game, and I think CJ Stroud can give that to them, but it's easier said than done. So that'll be the last little bit I add.
Turnover margin
Oh
needs to
yeah,
be a friend.
Jaguars are terrible at it. So
Yeah, the homestanding Jags on Sunday. Well, I'll be there. We're gonna be there,
I
but
unfortunately have to drive back on Friday. I would love to stick
I
around
know.
for a little bit more and go to. I haven't been to a home game this year. I've only been to
Yeah.
that Bills road game, which
Oof.
was pretty
We were
rough.
we were abused. We were
Yeah.
abused in Western
So,
New York.
but hopefully, maybe I can find another one. Maybe go to.
You were
I
at
don't
the
think I can
Wembley
go to
game. That
Nashville
was
either.
a home game. You were at the Wembley game. That was a home game.
Oh yeah, true. Hey, I went to one of the 2 W's this year, so I can't really complain. I guess So
Exactly. Take it.
beggars can't be choosers.
No, not at all. And we thank you for choosing Ryer on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, please hit that subscribe button. There is a notification bell right there. You can hit that. That way you're alerted to all of our content as it drops here on the channel. And a thumbs up, a like always helps us out tremendously as well. I don't know about you, Ev, but I can smell Thanksgiving around here
Yeah.
right now.
Oh yeah,
So
it's been smelling great all day.
yeah,
We did eat a tremendous dinner, that chicken salad, but
yeah.
also I ate a tremendous breakfast. This guy right here made blueberry muffins that were as good
Sourdough. How about
uh,
that?
as as anything I've had. So it's getting real interesting, and I'm actually still got cooking to do myself before tomorrow.
Evan
So
has been
uh,
inspired now, and he's going to whip together some
yeah, I'm
Thanksgiving.
gonna see what I can do and watch as everyone ignores it tomorrow. But that's
No, 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 no.
no no. I'll get some pity bites for sure. But
I'll eat it for sure. We
should
all
be
will.
should be a great time. Very much looking forward to Thanksgiving, and I hope that everyone else
Yep.
watching and following along also gets to have a great Thanksgiving.
It's Thanksgiving Eve, but we're busy here at Ryer on YouTube. We got a couple more shows coming up later tonight. Talking Tide with Chase Goodbread, sports columnist for the Tuscaloosa News. We'll be joined by Chase here on the channel at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, and then at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Coach Smitty jumps on to match up the Alabama Crimson Tide with the Auburn Tigers. We'll just talk Alabama football for a solid hour coming up a little bit later this evening on the channel as well. But always appreciate Evan jumping on with me here to talk Jacksonville Jaguars and some NFL. We'll do it again next week. Till next time. So long, everybody.
See you.